Hey guys, got a few things I want to show you. Lots of updates. Anyway, just regarding the Skylight engine, I did a video about it before, based on the CopperCube game engine with DirectX 11. So this is it here again. I was not comparing apples for apples, so in other words, comparing this to CopperCube. So this looks very good, isn't it? But this is CopperCube. It's not too bad. It's using the exact same textures, the same mesh, everything. Okay, so this is CopperCube. It's almost, it's very similar in a lot of ways, actually. I actually haven't incorporated the normal maps into it, so it probably looks slightly better. But as you can see, standard CopperCube, it's not too bad. So I wasn't actually comparing apples for apples with my other version of Sponser I had before. It's a much higher polygon one I had, which wasn't really suitable for comparison, actually. So this is this one, getting about 40 frames per second. That's not too bad. Arguably, I probably should be getting a few more than that. So it's about 80% as good as the Skylight engine, I would say. It's mostly there, but not exactly the same. Okay, so I've created a new API to allow for emissive material maps, standard PBR emissive material. You can just attach it as a second texture to a room, to whatever first texture you've got, and it will update it as normal. So I know for this particular room, I know this texture here has an emissive material connected to it, which is this one. It's just a standard emissive, so black background with the colors, and just attach it there and just make sure that's solid. And that's now can be controlled by a new material that I've created called SolidEmissive in the CopperCube source engine code. Yeah, this is a fixed function pipeline. I finally found where it was, and I've created one new material for it. I'll probably do a few other ones. I may even be able to get dynamic light maps working, who knows. But it's a weird situation in itself. Very old technology, but it works, and it works pretty fast for the most part. At least in the past, it has worked faster than shaders. So not that that's a major issue. It's the fact that with a separate shader in CopperCube, it overrides all of the default settings. Ambient, diffuse, emissive, specular, all that stuff no longer works. The lighting from point lights has to be redone and recalculated separately. It's quite a job. So instead of doing all that, you just use this new API. It's a lot better than doing it that way, if you ask me. Unless you're going to change the whole engine lighting system like Justin Crace created, which is actually a good idea, actually, but it's just really slow in compiling, so it just seems not usable at the moment. So this method at the moment seems pretty good, if you ask me. Just for emissive only. I might add a few more later, who knows. Okay, so there's my new API, ccbSetEmissive. You just get the node, just update a variable. This one just cycles up and down, that's what it does, and you'll see that. So, okay, so going back to that room, I've just added emissive. Now, this room out here has some for the roof as well. So that hallway, that one's already added, but there is another one here, which is you just grab the emissive, very easy, drop it into the second texture slot, leave it as solid, and when you run the API, it'll change this from solid to SolidEmissive and just run it that way. So it's pretty easy, actually. That's how it is at the moment anyway, but it's very easy, yeah. So if I was to publish that, so I now want to run it under my new API with the new code, so I have to actually run it through. So it'll run this compiled CopperCube game. I'll just call that app.exe, so that this is the new compiled code. It's only like 4.9 megabytes. So that has all the new APIs in it. Windows 32 player. You can call that whatever you want, doesn't matter. So when you run this, it automatically will look for app.exe and just open that and run it with the new APIs. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So Now this little shortcut, all that does is run this with debugger. That's all. That's the only difference. So now if I run this, it's effectively running this, which will then open that with the new API. So then I can see how it's working. So now it's open. I just press a button to start it off, and you can see it's going to cycle in and out quite nicely. So that's not super bright, but that's not supposed to be super bright just there. That's like wall lighting, but the roof lighting is a bit brighter. So that one works as well. So what I was doing before was having to create separate meshes for every single part of the game level for each mesh that had an emissive material attached to it, so I can control it separately through the emissive level using code separately, but which works fine actually, but it's a hassle to cut and create all new polygons and create and separate it all out that way. You don't need to do all that. You just simply grab your emissive material, drop it into the second slot, and run your code. That's it. Boom. Too easy. So that totally works. Yeah. So that's just like it's like a PBR material running the same way. Yeah, or you could do a shader that'll do that as well. But anyway, it's very simple and easy to do. Just drag and drop, and there it is. Theoretically, I could change it so instead of solid, if it's set up as solid 2 layer, then change that to my new emissive material and run it that way. So that at least that way you can sort of see that it's ready to go. Because who uses solid 2 layer? Probably not many people, I would think. Or I could, yeah. So when the new code and new APIs are added into the editor, if it ever happens, then you'll have a list here. It'll actually be at the bottom, called somewhere. I think it's after this one at the very bottom. Yeah, it'll be called solid_emissive, and that'll be the one that you use. Okay, so I found some error-linked code for some cloud scene nodes that I was trying to incorporate into CopperCube. It wasn't successful actually, but it's just because setting up the classes and all that's a little bit tricky. But anyway, there's an exe file just as a sample. I'll show you what I was trying to incorporate into CopperCube. The clouds looks pretty good, doesn't it? The clouds. So you've got 3 levels, and in the distance you can't see where it starts and stops. So it's a special sort of nice setup that someone made many years ago for the error-linked engine. Theoretically, you could easily add it into CopperCube if you're a bit more of an expert, better than I am. But yeah, it's pretty good, isn't it? Nice clouds. So this, I'll show you my attempt of that. It's basically the same, but not quite as sophisticated, but it's not too bad. Okay, I'll show you my version of it in CopperCube. This is just doing it the just single 2D plane mesh, so it's not using that same code, but I've just sort of imitated a little bit by animating the texture coordinates. It is effectively similar, but it's the distance in the horizon that's not really good. You can see where it starts and stops. So this is CopperCube, but I have made some modifications to a texture so that it blends in the distance a lot better, so you can't see where it starts and stops anyway. So it's effectively basically the same thing in CopperCube. I mean, it's not quite as good, admittedly, but that's not bad. So what I've done is, so you just animated the texture coordinates. That's the only movement, and each of those heights it's like a top of a dome. It's not completely flat, but it's slightly domed. Not that it really matters, I don't think. Not a big deal. I think flat, in a sense, looks a bit more realistic, actually. So in my main little test time of day scenario, I've just used a single level, and it's a flat plane actually. It's just a rounded surface with a single texture. So this is my little time of day I've got at the moment, just as a little test. nice little test of a few things of the. So we've got single level cloud. I've just turned off the other one, so it's a full-on day-night system with an aurora and everything. So let's just put that back the way it was, and just check the starting time. 3 o'clock in the morning. Yep, it's fine. So when I run that, I'll just need to save it. So that's called app.exe. So now it's created in the using some new APIs as well. So app.exe is now called app.exe, and that'll get run through the compiled version that I use with a few new APIs in it. So here's an interesting thing that I've added. This is the directional sun, and it works really well for outdoor terrains or anything actually. So it's pointing upwards. So if that was like imitating a time of day system, that means it's like you know, like midnight, so to speak. And as the sun comes down, it's brightening from where it's coming from, as you expect, and brightening the terrain. And so basically at that point there, just shooting up above, that's like, you know, like 5:30 in the morning, so to speak. Horizontals, like, you know, something like 6, and then it goes all the way down here until like 12 o'clock midday, and then it goes back again in the afternoon till about 6 p.m. and then it starts, yeah, about 6:37, cuts out like that. So what I'm doing with the clouds, it's a single level 2D plane mesh, and what I've done, I've just made it double-sided. So I've turned off any backface culling. So notice I'll just turn off this, get that out of the way. So notice the clouds now. So basically with the directional sunlight, if the faces are facing downwards from in the clouds, it'll get brightened by the directional light when it's up that way. But when the directional light comes down, pointing downwards, it's no longer going to brighten up the faces here because it's not facing that direction. It won't have any lighting at all applied to those colors. So you have to flip the surfaces at a certain point. That's what I've done. I created a new API to flip the surfaces. So instead of having just 2 copies of the same thing, why have 2 copies? You just have the one and just flip the surfaces. So I've got a new API called flip faces. I've just put the clouds in, and at a certain time of day it just flips it, and then in the afternoon it flips it back again at a certain time, and it just does it so you don't even notice it. So yeah, that's an interesting little thing. I'll show you that now. Okay, here's my day-night cycle. 3 o'clock in the morning, it's 24-hour time. Ambient lighting is 5. Adjust R is adjustment on the color for sunrise and sunset. So it's normally 1, but it gets adjusted up to 2, like it's changing now slowly. It's blending in the colors, going from a red to orange to a yellow. Looks pretty cool, isn't it? And all the directional lighting color changes as well as the clouds. The faces on the clouds will be flipped. There's a little message. It says faces flipped. So instead of having 2 copies of the clouds and just swapping them over, I just use the one and I just flip the faces. Very easy. So now the color the sun has come up, and the yellow has gone away, and it's just standard white sort of lighting on the terrain and the clouds. Got a bit of it's sort of a distance faded background color. So in other words, you can't see where the cloud start and stops with just to use a simple plain mesh. Sort of covers that up. So yeah, so it fixes that problem. You just got the clouds, nice bit of yellowy sun and the white clouds and a bit of a colour in the distance, a bit of a greeny colour. You know, might change that, but for now it's okay. You know, there's a few graphical issues. This is just a test scenario anyway, so it's fine. Yeah, time of day, it's 12 o'clock, so the sunlight's pointing straight down. So what I had to do was align the movement of that sun, which is just a 2D plane, according to the time of day, and then also align the direction of the directional sunlight to match. Wasn't too bad. A little bit of mass there, not too bad. So you can see how it blends quite nicely, transparent alpha. Yeah, so it's not too bad. Okay, the sun's going down. Was it 3 o'clock, 3:30? About 4, it should be starting to get a little bit dark, I think it is. About now, yeah. So the sun colour itself will go an orangey red colour. The lighting will turn more yellowy, as well as the directional sunlight colour will change to the same colour, like a yellowy colour. And it'll get darker and go into a more orangey than red colour everywhere. So it's pretty cool, isn't it? The faces will flip on the clouds. I think that's already happened, and it's just getting darker that way. Now I'm pretty sure we're up for a special event tonight. I think we're getting an aurora, if I'm not mistaken. Let's wait and see what happens with that. Oh, look at that. Clouds are going away and the aurora has faded in. So I've created a new API to fade in and fade out 3D meshes. It's just easier than using a shader. I could use a shader, but I like to keep it all within the engine if I can, because there's other functionality in the engine that you can just use so easily if you want to, anytime. But in a shader, if you want that extra functionality, every part of it has to be programmed separately. And yeah, so the color of the terrain is changed to like a greeny color a little bit as well. What's the time? Midnight. Ambient is 5, adjustment R is 1. So yeah, that's alright, isn't it? Not too bad. I mean, that's as good as I can get for an aurora-like effect at the moment. It's not great, but it's not terrible either. I think the scale should be fixed. Shouldn't be so dense. I should change the scale on that aurora a little bit, but you get the idea anyway. It's like an emissive. Yeah, so I think for those auroras, I've just it's got a fixed emissive, and I've just blended it, faded it in, and faded it out. That's all I've done. So this is like 4 o'clock in the morning. I think the sun should be coming up soon. Oh, there we go. Sun's coming up. That means the aurora should fade out, and the clouds should fade back in, right? Yeah, there it is. See that? So it's just fading in and fading out very nicely. Yeah, quite nicely. So there's the time of day effect. The faces were flipped just then. So yeah. So in other words, there's 2 new API created for this level. So one is the faces being flipped, as I showed before, and the other one is the changed transparency. So because if you use the inbuilt functionality of CopperCube, rather than setting up a new shader, set transparency, see that? Set transparency 3D, you just supply the node and whatever between 0 and 255 transparency, how much transparency you want, that's it. It'll fade it in and fade it out completely, really nicely actually. So in other words, these transparent objects, as they're fading in and faded out, they still will be affected by, they'll still be affected by the ambient lighting and any other things that you place here as well as directional lighting as well. All that stuff you want to just put into have it all just work together. It's just easier to use the inbuilt functionality, which is what's called the fixed function pipeline. It's the default CopperCube the way it works. There is a couple of shaders CopperCube uses. One's for normal maps, another one's for shadows, but that's about it. Everything else is fixed function pipeline, and you can use up to 8 point lights and 1 directional light, whereas if you're using a shader, I believe it's limited to 4 and a directional light. Pretty sure that's how it is. That's why I don't use it. I need more than 4 lights. It's not enough. So yeah, that's my little demo. A couple of new APIs for that. Okay, I got a couple of new physics APIs as well. So with this carrying 3D objects around, so what I've got is firstly is on a particular object that you're carrying, the current node, if it impacts something, I want to know what the impact damage is. So in other words, if I was theoretically to pick up something and chuck it at an enemy, I want to know how much damage it's going to cause the enemy. So that would be actually a really cool function if I get to work. But here's so in other words, your standard 3D object action on impact just runs a bit of code, just says, so there's my new API. Get physics impact. The carry node is just the current node that if I'm carrying it, then it will update and also play a sound if it impacts something according to the volume, according to the impact. On top of that, the problem with carrying objects before was, I think from code from Sven, which was a nice simple bit of code, but so you'd pick up an object, but theoretically, if you hit it against something, it will just spin in midair. So that's not really a good thing. So in other words, I've created an API to stop that. Set physics rotation. So when you click on it, I'll show you now anyway. Okay, so here's the object. I'll just pick it up. As you can see, it's not rotating now anymore. So if I can hit an object, it doesn't rotate. So that's good. I can drop it. As soon as I drop it, the rotation is activated again. So that's all right. So I can pick it up and then throw it, and it will still continue to rotate. And on the top right, you've got the impact damage amount. I've also got an ability to change the density of the object you're carrying, but haven't finished working with that. Okay, so as it impacts, it shows the impact damage supposedly on the top right. I think it's not super accurate, but it sort of works. So if I drop it from up here, 15, maximum damage was 15 there. So, and if I throw it, maximum damage, it's too much. Might be updating a little bit too fast, or alternatively, I just need to take, okay, it's too sensitive, in other words. You can change the sensitivity of that anyway. So that has to be above a certain level before it updates. So that might be the answer to that. Yeah, so stop the rotation and get the density. So in other words, that sound didn't really update properly then, and that one did. It's not really fully consistent. The engine is it needs a bit of tweaking in that regard actually, but it's mostly okay. So there's 9, there was 13 before. That was sort of a bit rough, but you know, we've got 11. Yeah, so it does sort of work to a basic level anyway. So yeah, so there's those couple of upgrades as well. So that's not quite finished yet, but there's set physics density, so you can actually change the density on any object dynamically. Get physics impact and set physics rotation. So yeah, those are there and working as well. So I hope you like that. Cheers.